My wife accidentally had an affair with her boss in her office's parking lot. I formed an alliance with the boss's wife, and here's how we exacted our revenge. Jasper had always believed in the simplicity of life, in the quiet joys of love and companionship. This belief shattered into 1,000 unrecognizable pieces the evening he saw them together in the parking lot of her office, his wife, Emma, and her boss, Maureen. It was supposed to be an ordinary Thursday, the kind where he would pick her up and they'd talk about their day over dinner at their favorite little Italian place. The scene unfolded before him like a surreal play. There, under the dim glow of a street lamp, was Emma, entangled in an embrace with Maureen, their lips locked in a kiss that screamed of betrayal. Jasper's heart pounded in his ears, a mixture of shock and anguish gripping him as he watched, hidden by the shadows. He drove home alone, the silence in the car a stark contrast to the storm raging in his mind. The images replayed over and over, each time a fresh stab of pain. How long had it been going on? Had he been blind to the signs? Questions circled in his head like vultures over a dying animal. At home, Jasper sat in the darkness of their living room, the only light coming from the flickering TV screen he wasn't watching. When Emma finally came home, her face flushed and her eyes avoiding his, the air between them was thick with unspoken accusations. Traffic was a nightmare, she mumbled, a poorly veiled lie that hung awkwardly in the room. Jasper nodded, not trusting his voice. His mind was a battlefield, love and betrayal warring within him. He wanted to confront her, to scream and shout, to demand answers. Yet, a part of him feared the truth, feared the shattering of the last remnants of the life he thought they had. That night, they lay in bed, a chasm of silence and secrets between them. Jasper stared at the ceiling, the shadows there morphing into the shape of his crumbling world. The following days were a charade. Jasper went through the motions, a ghost in his own life. At work, his colleagues' voices were a distant hum. At home, conversations with Emma were superficial and strained. Maureen's name was a dagger each time it was mentioned, a reminder of the betrayal that now defined his existence. But amidst the chaos of his emotions, a cold resolve began to form. Jasper was not a man of confrontation, nor was he one to sulk in self-pity. He needed answers, he needed to understand why, and perhaps most importantly, he needed to reclaim his dignity. As a software engineer, Jasper had always had a knack for unraveling complex codes and systems. Now, he would use those skills to unravel the truth. He started planning, his actions calculated and precise. He would infiltrate the company's network, find evidence not just of the affair but anything else that could bring Maureen down. In the dead of night, Jasper sat at his computer, the screen's glow the only light in the room. This was more than just a quest for truth, it was the beginning of his revenge. As he typed, each click of the keyboard was a step away from the man he once was and a step toward someone he never thought he'd become. In the shadows of betrayal, Jasper's new path was illuminated, a path of retribution and perhaps, eventual peace. Jasper's transformation from a betrayed husband to a man on a mission was not overnight. It was a gradual process, fueled by the simmering anger and the sharp sting of betrayal. He knew that a direct confrontation would lead nowhere, Maureen was too powerful, too influential. Jasper needed something more, something that would hit him where it hurt the most, his reputation and career. The plan was simple yet risky, infiltrate Maureen's company network and gather incriminating evidence. As a software engineer, Jasper had the skills, but he needed to be cautious. One wrong move, and he could end up in legal trouble, or worse, alert Maureen and lose the element of surprise. Jasper's fingers danced across the keyboard in the dimly lit room. His computer screen was filled with lines of code and multiple windows, each a gateway into the digital fortress he sought to breach. He started with the basics, probing the company's external defenses for weaknesses. It was like picking a complex lock, looking for the right combination to gain entry. As hours turned into nights, Jasper's life outside of his mission faded. He called in sick at work, hardly ate, and spoke to Emma only when necessary. His home office became his world, a sanctum where he plotted his revenge. Eventually, he found a way in, a small vulnerability in the company's email server. It was a risky entry point, but it was all he had. With meticulous care, he crafted a plan to exploit this weakness, masking his digital footprint as he delved deeper into the network. Inside the company's digital walls, Jasper felt like a ghost, unseen yet omnipresent. He combed through emails, financial records, and private communications. It was tedious work, sifting through the mundane to find the gems that would bring Marine down. Then, one night, as the clock ticked past midnight, Jasper struck gold. Hidden in a maze of financial documents, he found evidence of embezzlement, large sums of money funneled into private accounts, including Marine's. His heart raced as he dug deeper, finding more evidence of fraud and mismanagement. But Jasper wasn't done yet. He needed something personal, something that would link Marine directly to the affair. He turned his attention to Marine's personal communications, searching for any mention of Emma. It was a painstaking process, but Jasper was driven by a burning need for justice, or perhaps revenge. Finally, he found it, a series of emails between Marine and Emma that left no doubt about their affair. The words on the screen were a knife to Jasper's heart, but they were also the weapon he needed to strike back. With the evidence securely copied, Jasper began to plan his next move. He would need to be careful, smart about how he used this information. A direct leak could be traced back to him, so he needed a more subtle approach. As the first light of dawn crept through the curtains, Jasper sat back in his chair, a mix of exhaustion and satisfaction washing over him. He had the evidence, the power to destroy Marine's career and reputation. The next steps would be critical, but Jasper was ready. This was no longer just about revenge, it was about exposing the truth and reclaiming his life. The days following Jasper's digital foray were a blur of planning and anticipation. He knew he held in his hands the power to unravel Marine's carefully constructed facade. Yet, the weight of his discoveries bore heavily on him. They were not just digital files, they were the tangible proof of betrayal and corruption. Jasper's meticulous nature demanded a well-thought-out plan for revealing the evidence. A direct approach was too risky, and he needed an ally, someone who shared his desire for justice, or perhaps, vengeance. As fate would have it, Jasper's path crossed with Marine's wife, Isabel. It was an accidental meeting at a local coffee shop. Jasper had seen her in company photographs, always smiling, the perfect corporate spouse. But now, her eyes held a weariness that spoke of similar storms weathered. They struck up a conversation, two strangers finding solace in the shared awkwardness of small talk. Jasper learned that Isabel had her suspicions about Marine's fidelity but lacked proof. It was a moment of revelation for Jasper. Here was someone who understood, someone who was also a victim of Marine's deceit. Jasper wrestled with the idea of revealing his discoveries to Isabel. It was a risk, trusting a stranger, especially someone so close to Marine. But Jasper saw in her eyes the same hurt he felt in his heart. He decided to take the leap, revealing to her the extent of Marine's betrayal, both personal and professional. The revelation hit Isabel like a tidal wave. The initial shock soon gave way to a cold determination. She proposed an alliance, a partnership to bring Marine down. Jasper, seeing the resolve in her eyes, agreed. They were two sides of the same coin, betrayed and seeking retribution. Their meetings became frequent, hatching a plan that was both intricate and bold. They would expose Marine's embezzlement and fraud to the authorities and the public. But they would do it in a way that ensured the evidence could not be traced back to them. Isabel, with her insider knowledge of the company and its workings, provided critical insights. Jasper, with his technical expertise, ensured that the digital trails were covered. They decided to use anonymous email accounts and encrypted messages to communicate with the press and the authorities. As their plan took shape, so did their bond. There was an unspoken understanding between them, a shared sense of purpose that went beyond mere revenge. They were two broken pieces, trying to mend themselves by righting a wrong. Jasper found in Isabel a confidant, someone who listened to his ramblings and fears. She, in turn, found in Jasper a kindred spirit, someone who understood the depth of her hurt. Their conversations often veered away from plans and schemes, touching upon their hopes and dreams, their fears and regrets. But beneath their growing camaraderie, there was always the underlying current of their mission. They were on a path that would change not just their lives but the lives of everyone involved. It was a path fraught with danger and moral quandaries, but they were determined to walk it together. As the day of reckoning drew near, Jasper and Isabel prepared themselves for the fallout. They were about to shake the foundations of Marine's empire. There was no turning back now. The alliance of the betrayed was set to strike, and the world as they knew it would never be the same again. The day Jasper and Isabel had been meticulously planning for finally arrived. It was a day that promised to be the culmination of their shared journey of betrayal and revenge. The plan was set, the pieces in place, and the anticipation palpable. In the early hours of the morning, Jasper sat at his computer for one final check. He had to be sure every digital trace leading back to them was erased. The emails containing evidence of Marine's embezzlement and fraud, along with the undeniable proof of his affair with Emma, were scheduled to be sent to various media outlets and the authorities. They had chosen this day strategically, just hours before a major shareholder meeting at Marine's company. Isabel had her role to play. She would be at the meeting, the unsuspecting wife, while also ensuring the evidence reached the right hands internally. Her connections within the company were crucial to their plan, giving the story an air of credibility and urgency. As Jasper hit the final keystroke, sending their plan into motion, he felt a strange sense of calm. This was more than revenge, it was justice. He imagined Marine's face as the news broke, his world crumbling as he scrambled to explain the unexplainable. The news hit like a tsunami. By mid-morning, the story was everywhere: financial fraud on a massive scale, a CEO's illicit affair, a company's reputation in tatters. Jasper watched the chaos unfold from his computer screen, the digital world buzzing with the scandal. Isabel called him from the company, her voice a mixture of shock and triumph. "It's pandemonium here," she whispered. "Marine's been escorted out by security, and the board is in an emergency meeting." "We did it, Jasper." The fallout was immediate and devastating. Marine was suspended pending an investigation, his reputation in ruins. The company's stock plummeted, and the authorities began their inquiries. Jasper and Isabel watched from the shadows, their identities as the sources of the leak remaining hidden. But as the day progressed, Jasper's feeling of triumph began to wane, replaced by a growing unease. He watched Emma's reaction to the news, her face a canvas of shock and disbelief. She had no idea he was behind it all. He wondered if his quest for revenge had gone too far, if the price they all paid was too high. Isabel, too, was feeling the weight of their actions. Her marriage was over, her life forever altered. She had wanted revenge, but now, as she watched her world crumble, she wasn't sure if it was worth it. In the ensuing days, the story continued to dominate the news. Jasper and Isabel kept a low profile, their communication minimal. The bond they had formed seemed to fray under the reality of what they had done. They were no longer just victims, they were now the architects of someone's downfall. Jasper struggled with his emotions. He had wanted to hurt Maureen as much as he had been hurt, but the reality of his actions was overwhelming. He had caused immense pain, not just to Maureen, but to many others caught in the crossfire. As the chapter of revenge closed, Jasper was left to ponder the cost of his actions. He had sought justice but found only a hollow victory. The truth had been exposed, but at what price? Jasper's journey had led him to a crossroads, one where the path forward was uncertain and the shadows of his actions long and dark. The weeks following the exposure of Maureen's wrongdoings were a time of profound reflection for Jasper. The world around him continued to reel from the impact of the scandal, but within the walls of his home, a deep silence prevailed. This silence was not just the absence of sound, it was the presence of a heavy realization, the cost of revenge. Jasper found himself grappling with a spectrum of emotions. There was a fleeting satisfaction in having achieved what he set out to do, but it was quickly overshadowed by a sense of emptiness. He had expected to feel vindicated, to find closure, but all he found was a growing void where his anger once burned. Emma, oblivious to Jasper's role in the scandal, was struggling with her own demons. The affair had been a mistake, a lapse in judgment that she deeply regretted. But the public nature of the scandal had amplified her guilt and shame. Their home, once a haven of love and trust, now felt like a mausoleum of their former life. In the midst of this personal turmoil, Jasper received a call from Isabel. It had been weeks since they last spoke. The bond they had formed, forged in the fire of shared betrayal and revenge, had cooled in the aftermath. But the sound of her voice brought back a flood of memories. They met at a small cafe, a neutral ground far from the prying eyes of their intertwined worlds. Isabel looked different, there was a certain resolve in her eyes, a quiet strength that wasn't there before. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," Isabel began, her voice steady. "What we did, it was necessary, but I can't help feeling like we lost a part of ourselves in the process." Jasper nodded, her words echoing his thoughts. They talked for hours, not about the scandal or Maureen, but about themselves. It was a conversation of healing, of understanding the scars left behind by their quest for revenge. Isabel had decided to start anew, away from the chaos and the memories that haunted her. She spoke of her plans with a cautious optimism, a desire to find peace and maybe one day, forgiveness. Jasper listened, feeling a kinship with her journey. He, too, needed to find a way forward, to rebuild the ruins of his life. The conversation with Isabel was a bittersweet farewell, a closing of a chapter that had changed their lives forever. Returning home, Jasper faced Emma. It was time to confront their own broken pieces. In a long, emotionally charged conversation, they laid bare their pain and regrets. Jasper realized that his quest for revenge, while directed at Maureen, had also taken a toll on Emma and their marriage. The path to healing was slow and uncertain. Jasper and Emma attended counseling, trying to navigate the complex emotions and trust issues that plagued their relationship. There were good days and bad, moments of hope and bouts of despair. Jasper also sought redemption in his own way. He began volunteering at a local community center, finding solace in helping others. It was a small step, but it was a start, a way to channel his experiences into something positive. As the story concludes, Jasper and Emma's future remains uncertain. But there is a sense of hope, a faint light at the end of a long, dark tunnel. Jasper had sought revenge and found only emptiness. Now, he sought forgiveness and healing, not just for himself, but for those he had hurt. The final chapter of Jasper's story is one of introspection and rebuilding. It is a reminder that the quest for retribution often leads to unexpected destinations and that true strength lies in the ability to find forgiveness and start anew.